President Nicolás Maduro arrived in Qatar as part of his international tour of solidarity and collaboration. The Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador demanded the release of its president Leonidas Iza Salazar amidst demonstrations in rejection of President Lazo's policies. Authorities in El Salvador report at least 6 dead due to rains and floods caused by a tropical wave. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, arrived in Qatar, the fifth country he has visited as part of his tour of the Eurasian region, with the aim of strengthening bilateral relations. The Venezuelan president was received by senior officials of the Qatari government upon his arrival at Doha's international airport. During his stay in that country, the Venezuelan head of state is expected to meet with the Emir of Qatar, Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. With this visit, Nicolás Maduro bets on strengthening bilateral relations through cooperation and promoting the construction of a multipolar world without hegemonism. The South American president has also visited Turkey, Algeria, Iran, and Kuwait in the framework of this tour with a broad cooperation agenda that focuses on the areas of science, technology, agriculture, transportation, energy, tourism, and culture. At the end of his first official visit to the state of Kuwait, the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, highlighted the agreements made during his meetings with high government officials from the Middle East nation.
We decided to activate a high-level joint commission with specific plans for cooperation in political and diplomatic fields, to continue intensive cooperation in the oil and gas industries, and to strengthen OPEC. Concerning investments, we invited the Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development and private businessmen to invest in Venezuela in the fields of tourism, energy, and trade.
On this first official visit of Venezuelan president to Kuwait, Nicolás Maduro was welcomed at the Royal Palace, where he met with the country's first minister and other government officials. The Venezuelan head of state paid his first official visit to that Asian nation to bolster bilateral ties. During this occasion, Maduro met the incoming OPEC Secretary General Haytham Al-Ghaiz, Kuwait's Prime Minister Sheikh Sabah Khalid Al-Hamas Al-Sabah, the Crown Prince His Highness Mishal Al-Hamad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, as well as other top officials and authorities. In his farewell remarks, Maduro referred to both nations' intentions to cooperate in agriculture and oil production, as well as to bolster relations in other areas. And the president of Venezuela, in the framework of his first official visit to Kuwait, met on Tuesday with the incoming Secretary General of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, Kuwait's Haytham Al-Ghaiz. The Venezuelan head of state, whose country has the largest crude reserves in the world, and Al-Ghaiz, who will formally take office next August, discussed the direction in which they should work together with other OPEC member nations. According to official sources, as part of his official activities, the president of the South American nation also met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and president of the Kuwait Economic Fund, Ahmed Nasser Al-Mohamed Al-Sabah. President Maduro arrived in Kuwait with the purpose of expanding bilateral relations at all levels under the principles of mutual respect and self-determination of peoples, with a view to defending multilateralism. Colombian prison workers denounced presidential candidate Rodolfo Hernandez on charges of defamation. The Second Municipal Court of Small Labor Cases of Bogota admitted an action filed by the Union of Prison Workers and the Union of the National Penitentiary and Prison Institute against the presidential candidate Rodolfo Hernandez for damaging the institution's reputation. On Twitter, the union demanded respect for prison workers while assuring that there are more than 16,000 families who make a living from this profession. This message was accompanied by a video in which Rodolfo Hernandez points out in a broad generalization the level of corruption in the National Penitentiary and Prison Institute. Social organizations for the defense of human rights in Colombia presented a report on what they considered to be the failures of Ivan Duque's government. According to a document known as Hunger and War, the Legacy of the Apprentice, there was an increase in the number of murders of social leaders during the administration of President Ivan Duque from 116 victims in 2016 to 310 in 2020 alone, while so far in 2022 there have been 81 assassinations. Massacres, on the other hand, went from 9 in 2016 to 33 in 2020. The report also revealed that in 2020, the fall in women's employment together with youth unemployment caused more than 2,150,000 people to fall into poverty. The group highlighted that the current government failed to comply with the goals of the development plan in relation to social issues and with the peace agreement signed in 2016. And the Brazilian justice extended on Tuesday for 60 days the investigation against President Jair Bolsonaro for the alleged spread of false reports on COVID-19 vaccines. Brazil's Supreme Federal Court decided to continue the inquiries opened by the Senate's Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry, which was charged with investigating the government's performance during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Parliamentary Commission, Bolsonaro committed a dozen transgressions, among them the spreading of false news regarding COVID-19 vaccines that linked it to HIV. According to the report, some 78 people and 2 companies are under investigation for these incidents, among them the president's 3 sons, as well as several ministers and former ministers of the country. The Mexican government is getting ready to vaccinate children between the ages of 5 and 11 against COVID-19. The authorities explained that the immunization against the coronavirus for this group of children will begin on Thursday. The Undersecretary of Public Health Prevention, Hugo Lopez-Gatell, informed that the pharmaceutical company Pfizer-BioNTech will provide the country with 8 million doses of anti-COVID-19 vaccines for minors. The official explained that this is the 7th stage of the immunization program designed in the country to contain COVID-19 infections. The government pointed out that the goal is to give the doses to 15.4 million children before December, and that the campaign will be carried out by municipalities. Chinese officials in Shanghai stressed on Tuesday the importance to strictly implement epidemic preventive measures in business firms such as supermarkets and shopping malls in order to reduce risk of infections. The deputy chief of the Yangpu district, Xi Fang, elaborated at a press meeting on a measure to enhance supervision of places with large flow of people after a recent cluster infection related to an appliance store in the district. She said the district government has issued 9 guidelines to major businesses entities and urged them to conduct self-examination. She also urged individuals to dutifully carry out epidemic prevention. Shanghai reported 2 locally transmitted confirmed COVID-19 cases and 1 local asymptomatic carrier from midnight to 17 on Tuesday. All the 3 infections were detected during a community screening, and the patients have been sent to designated hospitals for medical treatment or observation. We're taking a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. The Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador demands the release of its president, Leonidas Iza Salazar, detained during a new day of demonstrations in rejection of President Lazo's government policies. The arrest, described as illegal by Conaie, was carried out by police elite groups in the Lazo sector, Cotopaxi province, amid social protests and a general strike. After the apprehension, the organization made a call to increase actions to demand the release of Leonidas Iza Salazar, in addition to maintaining the initial list of demands, among which the reduction of fuel prices and fair prices for agricultural products stand out. Ecuadorian law enforcement agencies mobilized to the prosecutor's office and took the building where Conaie President Leonidas Iza is detained. The social leader was arrested in the early hours of Tuesday morning in the framework of the second day of the national strike called by the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador. According to reports, Iza was transferred to the Latacunga City Prosecutor's Office, where law enforcement forces militarized the building's flagrancy unit. The Ecuadorian Public Ministry announced that it received the social leader along with the police report of his arrest, while hundreds of people and members of social movements arrived at the judicial complex in Latacunga to request the release of Leonidas Iza. At the same time, defense lawyers of the social leader presented a habeas corpus for the legal protection of the defendant. The United States has imposed visa restrictions on dozens of Nicaraguan officials, accusing them of allegedly undermining democracy in the aftermath of President Daniel Ortega's successful re-election last year. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that 93 officials, including judges, prosecutors, Interior Ministry officials, and members of Nicaragua's National Assembly, were targeted. The names of the people were not released. The State Department had previously imposed visa restrictions on 116 individuals linked to the Ortega government, including mayors, prosecutors, university administrators, as well as police, prison, and military officials. The Treasury Department has frozen the U.S. assets of the defense minister and other officials in the army, telecom, and mining sectors, as with dozens of Nicaraguan officials already under sanctions. Ohio school districts will be able to begin arming employees under a bill signed into law Monday by Republican Governor Mike DeWine. The bill stipulates as sufficient a 24-hour training period for an employee to properly handle a gun to ensure school safety.
House Bill 99, as you know, also addresses the option, and it is an option, to arm school personnel, although this bill was in the making long before the recent tragedy in Texas. That heartbreaking school shooting certainly prompted its enactment.
The United Kingdom cancelled its first deportation flight to Rwanda after a last-minute intervention by the European Court of Human Rights, which decided there was a real risk of irreversible harm to the asylum seekers involved. The flight had been scheduled to leave Tuesday evening local time, but lawyers for the asylum seekers launched a flurry of case-by-case appeals seeking to block the deportation of everyone on the government's list. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss had said earlier in the day that the plane would take off no matter how many people were on board, but after the appeals, no one remained. Activists have denounced the policy as an attack on the rights of refugees that most countries have recognized since the end of World War II. Authorities in El Salvador report at least 6 dead due to rains and floods caused by a tropical wave. Local authorities said the rains and floods also damaged 19 houses, knocked down 10 trees, caused rivers to overflow and landslides that affected several communication routes in the country. The authorities warned that the rainfall that began on June 7th will continue throughout the week. They also call on the population living in high-risk areas to comply with the instructions of law enforcement or go to the shelters set up for those affected.
What do we need for this to be finally successful? We have to abide by the recommendations. We should not expose ourselves to danger. They would have shelters with everything needed so that they can have their space to rest, their space for protection, to avoid risk in areas where there might be serious events.
And we have more news coming up after the final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Russia's Gazprom enterprise announced on Tuesday that they will reduce by 40% the volume of gas supply to Europe through the Nord Stream pipeline. According to the Russian energy company, the measure is due to the fact that the German company Siemens has not yet returned the technical equipment used to pump the gas, which was under repair. This led to a reduction in the number of pumps, which affected the volume of gas. Meanwhile, he detailed that at the moment, it will only be possible to guarantee a level of gas supply through the Nord Stream pipeline of up to 100 million cubic meters per day of the 167 million cubic meters planned. The measure comes amid a drop in Russian gas exports to Europe due to sanctions taken against Russia since the beginning of the special operation in Ukraine. Following Gazprom's announcement to reduce gas supplies via Nord Stream, the price of gas in Europe rose by more than 10%. The price of the hydrocarbon on the Dutch market rose to 94.77 euros per megawatt hour on Tuesday, which translates into almost $1,000 per 1,000 cubic meters, an increase of more than 13% compared to the previous day. According to data from the ICE Stock Exchange in London, the stock market session opened on Tuesday just above 900 euros and then accelerated the pace of growth. The Russian Baltic Sea Fleet reported on the implementation of air defense exercises to detect unidentified targets and repel simulated attacks against enemy aircraft. According to the fleet's press service, more than 40 aircraft and helicopters, as well as about 2,000 units of weapons and military equipment, are also involved in the exercises, which are part of the troops' training plan of 2022. The objectives are to increase the level of readiness and capability of the fleet's military management units. They also seek to improve the interaction, maritime and field training of ship crews and coastal troop staff. According to Burkina government spokesman Lionel Belko, at least 50 civilians have died in an attack by suspected criminal armed groups on a village in the north part of the country, describing the killing as a revenge attack. At a press conference, the government spokesman announced the army was deployed at the site and search for victims of the attack continues.
The army has been on the scene since yesterday. They began to search for victims or bodies as of this morning. The army had found 5 bodies at the entrance of Seitenga. After checking all houses, 50 bodies were found early in the afternoon, and the search continues.
At the same time, Belko stated the death toll as a result of the attack may rise.
By air and land, the defense and security forces landed in Seitenga. The search continues house by house, area by area. Now it is a matter of saying that the death toll may be higher than the 50 bodies already found.
In northeastern Uganda, the region of Karamoja is in the grip of a hunger crisis. People are suffering of a food shortage caused by drought, pests, and insecurity, as well as government neglect. Over 22,700 children under the age of 5 are undernourished and in need of treatment. Karamoja is one of the poorest regions in Uganda, with a poverty rate of 66%, more than 3 times the national poverty rate. But this is the first time in 3 years that all its 9 districts are at a food crisis level or worse. The ongoing drought in the Horn of Africa has affected the Karamoja sub-region. High food prices have left many families unable to afford nutritious foods, forcing them to find other ways to cope. Some families have been forced to consume their seed stocks, leaving nothing for the planting season, while others have had to borrow money or reduce expenditures on necessities such as education and health. And teleSUR expands its signal with new satellite parameters since more than ever. The world connects to us and our stories are being heard in other faraway nations. The parameters are in place since June 1st in Latin America and the Caribbean, both in English and in Spanish, and quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. This new multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. And like this, we have come to the end of this news review. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.